Hello, my name is Lucy McMullen and I am the Creative Brand Director for Solv and the host of the Solv Social Podcast. The podcast where we get social with inspirational individuals, thought leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs and change makers. For those of you who don't know, Solv is a new tech platform that crowdsources customer support for some of the world's biggest, most exciting brands. If you're listening and you fancy working when you want, where you want, and earning however much you want by supporting the brands you know and love, then join the movement at solvenow.com. All you need is a Wi-Fi connection, a laptop, or a smartphone. Become a solver. Solvenow.com. That's solvenow.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you our future. Our future. Our future.
Today is the first episode of the Solv Social Podcast, and we are joined by an incredible guest. Now, I'm no Wikipedia, okay? So, Fred, you have achieved so much success, and I feel like I would do an injustice if I was to explain from my perspective. So please, can you introduce yourself?
Well, fine, Lucy. Let me be brief, though.
Okay.
I went to school in the U.S., engineering school, and a few years later I got a master's in business and started my career with GE and eventually worked myself up to a fairly good executive position. I was there for 25 years and then ended my working days with Gulfstream Aerospace as leading that company during the turmoils of the 90s.
So you were hired to lead Gulfstream, and then you were told that it would run out of money within 30 to 60 days. Is that on your second day you were told that?
I think it was my second day, as a matter of fact.
Crazy.
And, it's history now, but that was kind of shocking. I guess the really tough thing happened on the third day.
Yeah.
And that was one of our customers, a very well-known brand, but I won't mention, invited me to come with them for 3 days down for the Masters golf tournament in Augusta. The Masters is the golf tournament, and I would be able to play in the par 3, which precedes and all that. And I had to fight this thing. Oh, I wanted to go so badly.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I just found out we're running out of money. It really wasn't the right thing to do, to leave for 3 days while Rome was burning. So I had to turn it down and say, I hope you give me a rain check. But never did get that rain check.
Yeah. So your reaction to finding out, that travesty of the business is falling, what was your reaction to that? How did you overcome it?
Well, first of all, we got the team together. We had a team. I can't say we hired some more people. That didn't happen the second day, but it happened pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
But we basically said, hey, no time for fun. We got to get serious, and how do we survive the storm? And if you're going to run out of money, there's two things you can do. One is don't spend as much money as you're spending. That's something you can control somewhat.
Yeah.
And the other part of it is get more money in than you were forecasting. And over time, with a very talented team, we did a lot of very good, cost-effective things to reduce the burn rate. And second thing, we paid a lot of attention to getting funds that were due in.
Yeah.
And the third thing that happened eventually, it took about a year, but the economy took a rise up, and that really helped dramatically as well. So a little bit of luck in there.
A quote that I did see in an article was your boss, Bob, was it?
Ted Forsman? Or
The quote that I had seen was that he had spent his life controlling debt.
Oh, this was the treasurer of the company, the treasurer,
Yes.
Bob Williams.
Bob, yes.
Yeah.
It didn't have his surname in the article, and I spent ages trying to figure out who it was. But Bob had said he had spent his entire life controlling debt, and the company had so much money now that he didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
That has to be an incredible compliment to.
Well, it's
to your
again,
efforts.
it's the whole team, but
Of course.
Bob was the guy that came in on day 2 and said, "You're probably going to fire me, but I got to tell you, we're going to run out of money in the next 30 to 60 days. And, of course, I didn't fire him. That, it wasn't his fault. But he was the guy that came back some years later and said, "Hey, I need some training. What do I do with all this money?" So it was good. And if you go now, that was back in the mid to late 90s. If you look at the company now, it's thriving. It was bought out by General Dynamics, but it's a separate unit under General Dynamics, and it's doing fantastically well. And what I feel good about is that that company is there to do well, where if things would have gone the other way, there wouldn't be either the product or the job. So it's wonderful.
It's phenomenal. You have achieved such incredible things, and I'm very inspired by your story and your strength going through those problems and overcoming it. Is there anything in particular that you think you would contribute your success to? It's a very
I'm trained as an engineer, so maybe logical problem solving, but I think more importantly is a positive aspect. Treating people with respect. I don't, when we started this podcast, you said, "Well, what's the proper pronunciation of your surname?" My usual answer is, you said surname, but how do you pronounce your name? My usual answer is Fred.
Okay.
Positive,
relaxed.
Casual, you either laugh or cry. Well, it's better to laugh. And I think it's infectious. So as a leader and other leaders, if you're positive, I think your team is positive. You set tough goals. You work together to make goals. If there is an issue, a bump in the road, let's not hide it. Let's see how we can all get together to help someone solve it, whether it's your problem or somebody else's problem. So I think that's been the philosophy, with not only with employees, but with customers, with suppliers. How do we work together to overachieve?
I mean, it's a fantastic philosophy. I completely agree with you. For me personally, it's empathy for other people and great understanding for other people. Being able to read what people are thinking before they say it. It's a very, very hard skill. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned then in your career? And is there any particular advice that you would give to business leaders today? Very interview question, very serious.
Yeah, very serious question.
I'll give you a second to think that over.
Yeah. Again, I think that sometimes listening, not sometimes, probably the most important thing is the listening part of two-way communications. Communications is really important. Credible communications is even more important. Listening is as big a part of communications as sending. So if I were to say anything, listening, you can get all the answers typically, and you'd be surprised where the answers come from.
100%.
So your answers, if there's a problem on a factory floor, maybe the person on the factory floor actually knows the answers if someone would listen.
Exactly.
So if you set some goals and people are part of understanding the goals, understanding where we want to go, and they can contribute, it's a lot of energy.
I think the other thing for me is having a really strong strategy as a business leader.
Sure.
And I know you're very passionate about that. So I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on strategy?
Well, again, I want to push that back to communication, because the strategy is going to be dependent on the circumstances, but having a strategy, a vision, and some tactics on how you're going to execute that strategy, and then let people know what that is. It's not a secret. It's not in my back pocket. Why don't we have these little cards and put them in your pocket so everybody can see, oh, this is what we're trying to do, and here's our vision, and here's the tactics we're going to do. And when you have that, and it's not a secret, customer sees that, it's okay. Hey, that's pretty good. Supplier sees, that's not bad.
Yeah.
The employees, it's a home run.
I totally agree with that.
So it's
Completely.
really it just depends on the circumstances what that strategy might be. But
Yeah.
but the communication is probably the bigger piece.
I think for me, on a personal level, I've always been very focused on strategy. Concentrics were doing a fantastic job with their strategy in terms of moving forward in this digital age, by creating a platform for customer service, by crowdsourcing the customer support, not making people work 9 to 5 in an office every day. That strategy for me was what made it really attractive for me to join the company.
Yeah,
So,
and in fact, it might be interesting if I go back to when I started with GE back in 1968. Wow, before you were born, well before you were born. Back then, there were gigs, but the gigs were, well, first of all, it came from bands getting a job.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to play at the wedding tonight, or we're playing at Joe's Bar. We got a gig tonight. That was a gig. But typically, people who either for whatever reason couldn't get a full-time job, it could have been the economy, it could have been their education, it could have been they just didn't want it. They did some part-time stuff, and that was kind of their gig.
Yeah.
But this whole digital age, and maybe Uber has led this thing,
Very much so, I think,
is
yeah.
fantastic. And this is the way it is. Because now, first of all, there's no stigma. If people want to do it, that's great. Let's facilitate it.
Yeah.
I would say for people who are doing it, there's some disciplines which maybe will also be solved with some software of, hey, you're doing work for yourself. You got to make sure you save enough for the taxes and insurance and retirement, which sometimes working full time for a company, they kind of do some of that stuff for you. But we better embrace it. It's happening. It's there. It's going to be, I don't know, 30-40% of the workforce probably, or maybe more. I'm not up to speed on the numbers. So. I got to applaud you and really this whole Solv program, because this is going to facilitate and help put people who want to do this together with people who need this done. So it's a facilitator, and there'll be more and more things to help facilitate these types of programs.
I think I'm so passionate about it. I'm so passionate about gig economy. I think, of course, working full-time has its benefits, but I think gig economy also has benefits. Now, they both will, suit different types of people. Gig economy it could be for the working mum who has 5 kids and wants to earn money but doesn't have the time for a full-time job. It could be for a startup entrepreneur who is starting up their business but doesn't have the finances, so they need to earn a bit of money on the side. Gig for me and Solv is the perfect side hustle for anyone that wants to earn extra money but doesn't have the time for a part-time, full-time job.
Or they may have a full-time job and they need a little bit extra, so they put a little extra in.
100%. It's just the perfect side hustle. And everyone I've talked to about it is like, what's the catch? Like that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah, the great thing is that nobody's fighting it. It's, hey, let's do it. Let's go with the flow.
And see what happens.
I think it's going to be positive. I think it's a win-win. It's a win for the employee, a win for the company.
Hopefully. So we have one more question for you.
Sure.
This is the most serious question of all. So I want you to prepare yourself. Take a moment. Okay. What are you currently obsessed with? This doesn't have to be, I am obsessed with world peace. Like, for me right now, I'm obsessed with the fact that Concentrics are doing green juices downstairs. And it means that I can have something healthier than a milky coffee every day.
My answer is very tactical in nature. Tomorrow I am so looking forward to playing Royal County Down. This is one of the greatest golf courses in the world.
Amazing.
And I am so excited to be able to play tomorrow. I'm obsessed with it. Now, maybe Tuesday will be something else, but as far as my focus over the last several months. I've played it once before. I had the privilege of playing it before, and I am so looking to try to do a little better this time.
Amazing. So
that's a terrible answer for a serious question, but
I was only joking. It's not serious at all.
It happens to be the truth. By the way, it is really super fun and a privilege to come to Belfast. I first came to Belfast when I was with Gulfstream, and I flew in. This is a true story. I flew in. It had to be 94 or so during the Troubles. I believe it was that time. And I flew in a private plane, taxied to Shorts, which was Bombardier, which is now going to be something else. My wife was with me. She went out and went to cut some crystal in one of the glass shops. Somebody took her out. We did whatever business we were going to do that day, and then we didn't even stay in Belfast. We flew away that evening. She still uses that glass as a memory. It's a great glass. She did a great job
Tipperary
cutting
crystal. Do you know something? No idea.
I don't know what kind of crystal it was,
Yeah.
but she was able to do the cutting.
That's
They showed her how to
amazing.
do it. It was really fun, and she smiles about that. And then, of course, I've been here a few more times afterwards, and it's great. It's just such a friendly town. It's a privilege to always come visit Belfast.
I love that. I love Belfast. I think it's emerging as well with loads of development at the moment, which is quite exciting to be in the middle of it.
It's true.
So thank you so much for being on the first Solv Social podcast.
Well, it was a pleasure.
And if anyone is listening, you can follow us at Solv Social on all of our social media sites, and check out solvenow.com. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Come on, attention people, y'all get ready. This is for everybody.